We stand at the precipice of an idea, a question that has haunted humanity since the dawn of consciousness. What if death isn't the end? What if instead it's merely a threshold, a door you can in fact walk back through? It's a thought that challenges our most fundamental assumptions about existence, about time, about purpose. For millennia, the finality of death has been the unshakable bedrock of human experience. It shapes our choices, fuels our ambitions, and deepens our loves, knowing that every moment is finite. But what if that bedrock were, in reality, a flowing current? What if the narrative we've constructed around life and death is incomplete, missing a crucial chapter where the exit is also an entrance? Consider the immense weight lifted, or perhaps shifted, if mortality were just a temporary state. The fear that grips us when we contemplate our own cessation, or the profound grief we experience when loved ones depart. These emotions are intrinsically tied to the perception of irreversible loss. If death were a permeable membrane, a reversible transition, how would the fabric of our lives reweave itself? Would the urgency of living diminish? Or would it transform into a different kind of appreciation, one based on cycles rather than singular journeys? This isn't about wishful thinking, but a genuine exploration of the implications, the potential ripples across every aspect of human civilization. If this extraordinary premise held true, it delves into the very core of what it means to be human, to experience love, loss, learning, and ultimately, to understand our place in the cosmic dance. When we consider death as a door, the immediate challenge is to define what walking back through actually entails. It's not a singular concept, but a spectrum of possibilities that have been envisioned across cultures and philosophies. On one end, you have the idea of time's reincarnation asterisk, a soul or consciousness moving from one body to another, often with no memory of past lives. This is a prevalent belief in many Eastern traditions, where the cycle of rebirth, or samsara, is governed by karma, the actions of one life determining the conditions of the next. Imagine living multiple lives, each a clean slate, yet subtly influenced by the echoes of previous existences. Your personality, your predispositions, even your inexplicable talents might be faint memories of skills honed across centuries. Then there's the concept of time's resurrection asterisk, particularly potent in Abrahamic religions. Here, it's not just the spirit returning, but often the body itself, reformed and reunited with the soul at a specific future point. This is a much more definitive, often divine, intervention, suggesting a grand narrative with a clear beginning and end, where death is conquered and life is restored in a final, perfected form. The body, rather than being discarded, becomes an integral part of the eternal existence. Beyond these structured belief systems, we encounter more enigmatic phenomena, like time's near-death experiences, asterisk, or NDEs. Thousands of individuals worldwide report leaving their bodies, encountering deceased loved ones, experiencing profound peace or a life review, and then, invariably, returning. Are these neurological phenomena vivid hallucinations triggered by oxygen deprivation, or genuine glimpses through that elusive door? The consistency of these reports across diverse cultures and individuals, often with no prior belief in such experiences, compels us to consider their potential significance. If these accounts contain any truth, they suggest a consciousness that can exist independently of the physical brain, capable of traversing beyond its material confines and then, quite literally, walking back. And what about more esoteric ideas, like the notion of time's quantum immortality asterisk? This highly speculative theory, rooted in interpretations of quantum mechanics, suggests that consciousness never truly ends, but rather shifts to a reality where it continues to exist. In every quantum choice or event, if there's a possibility for your survival, your consciousness follows that path. It's a mind-bending idea, proposing that from your subjective perspective, you never actually die, but simply transition to an alternative branch of reality where you survived. This isn't walking back through a door in the traditional sense, but more like continuously stepping into an adjacent room where the door you thought was there never truly closed. Each of these interpretations offers a distinct lens through which to view the profound question of death's finality or lack thereof. If death were truly a reversible door, the philosophical implications would be staggering, forcing a complete recalibration of human purpose and meaning. The existential dread that often accompanies the realization of our finite existence would either dissipate entirely or transform into a new kind of existential questioning. Would life lose its preciousness if it were no longer fleeting? The urgency to achieve, to love, to experience often stems from the understanding that our time is limited. If that limit were porous, would we still strive with the same intensity? Or would there be a sense of boundless time, leading to procrastination on an unimaginable scale, knowing that every opportunity will eventually cycle back around? Consider the impact on personal identity. If we walk back through the door, do we retain our memories, our personalities? If not, is it truly times us, times returning, or simply a new iteration of consciousness, perhaps informed by past experiences but fundamentally new? The concept of individual identity, so central to our sense of self, becomes fluid. Who am I? If I am merely a temporary vessel for an enduring consciousness that has inhabited countless forms, this could lead to a profound sense of detachment from the individual ego, perhaps fostering a greater sense of interconnectedness with all life, seeing ourselves as part of a larger, ongoing tapestry. The impact on grief and mourning would be equally transformative. The raw agony of loss is predicated on permanence. If we knew with certainty that our loved ones would eventually return, even in a different form, would grief be softened? Would funerals become celebrations of transition rather than somber farewells? Perhaps we would develop new rituals, not just to honor the departed, but to welcome the eventual return, searching for familiar traits or echoes in new generations. The fear of oblivion, both for ourselves and for those we cherish, would diminish, replaced by a sense of cyclical continuity. However, new anxieties might emerge. What if someone returns changed, unrecognizable, or burdened by the experiences of another life? The comfort of continuity could be complicated by the challenge of recognition and reconnection. Ethical considerations would also shift dramatically. If life is an ongoing cycle, how would we view concepts like abortion, euthanasia, or even capital punishment? If every life is destined to return, does the sanctity of a single life diminish, or does it become even more profound, as each existence is a crucial step in an eternal journey? The concept of justice, too, would face scrutiny. If perpetrators eventually return, perhaps in less fortunate circumstances due to karmic consequences, does societal punishment become less relevant? Or does the understanding of eternal consequences for actions lead to a more profound personal accountability? These questions challenge the very foundations of our legal and moral frameworks, forcing us to reevaluate what it means to live justly in an unending cycle. From a scientific and metaphysical perspective, the idea of death as a reversible door opens up fascinating avenues of inquiry. Near-death experiences, as mentioned, are a key piece of this puzzle. Researchers like Dr. Bruce Grayson and Dr. Pim van Lommel have meticulously documented thousands of NDE accounts, finding striking similarities. Out-of-body sensations, encounters with beings of light, panoramic life reviews, and a pervasive sense of peace. While skeptics often attribute these to brain chemistry during critical moments, the sheer consistency, often involving detailed and verifiable observations made while clinically dead, challenges purely materialist explanations. If consciousness can truly exist outside the body, even for a brief period, it implies a fundamental decoupling that could facilitate a return. Then we delve into the realm of quantum physics, a field that repeatedly blurs the lines between what we perceive as solid reality and what remains unseen. Some interpretations suggest that consciousness itself might be a fundamental aspect of the universe, not merely an emergent property of the brain. If consciousness is a field or an energy that interacts with matter, then the conservation of energy principle becomes highly relevant. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. If consciousness is a form of energy, where does it go after bodily death? Could it simply reorganize, repattern, or reintegrate into new forms, effectively walking back through into a new manifestation. This line of thinking, while highly speculative, offers a framework that bridges the gap between ancient spiritual wisdom and cutting-edge scientific theory, suggesting that the universe itself might be designed for perpetual cycles of emergence and re-emergence. Another intriguing area is the study of past life regressions. While often met with skepticism, numerous individuals under hypnosis report vivid memories of previous lives, sometimes with astonishing detail that can, in rare cases, be historically verified. Children, too, occasionally exhibit spontaneous memories of past lives, identifying specific places, people, or events that they could not have known. These anecdotes, while not conclusive scientific proof, add another layer of complexity to the door analogy, suggesting that memory, or at least some form of energetic imprint, might persist beyond a single lifespan. It raises the possibility that the door might not always be a clean slate, but sometimes carries a subtle residue of former journeys. Culturally and religiously, the concept of a reversible death is deeply ingrained in much of human civilization, albeit in varied forms. In Hinduism and Buddhism, the cycle of times, samsara times, and times karma times is central. Life is a continuous journey through countless forms, driven by the accumulated actions of past lives. The ultimate goal, moksha times or times nirvana is not an end to existence, but an end to the cycle of rebirth, a liberation from the door itself, merging with the ultimate reality. This isn't about avoiding death, but understanding its cyclical nature as a means to spiritual evolution. In stark contrast, Abrahamic religions like Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, while emphasizing a singular life, often include a belief in time's resurrection *. For Christians, Christ's resurrection is the cornerstone, promising a future bodily resurrection for believers, leading to eternal life. In Islam, there is a belief in a day of judgment, where all will be resurrected and held accountable. These traditions speak to a final grand return, a restoration, rather than an ongoing cycle. Yet both Eastern and Western traditions, despite their differences, share a fundamental rejection of absolute annihilation. They both envision a scenario where death is not the final word, but a transition, a passage through a door to another state of being. Indigenous cultures around the world also frequently hold beliefs in ancestor spirits, the transmigration of souls into animals or plants, or the cyclical nature of life and death woven into the very fabric of nature. The salmon swimming upstream to spawn and die, nourishing the next generation, is a potent metaphor for a continuous cycle of life and renewal. Psychologically, if death were a door we could walk back through, human behavior would undoubtedly undergo profound shifts. Would risk-taking increase dramatically if the ultimate consequence, permanent death, were removed? Would soldiers charge into battle with less fear, knowing their consciousness would simply find a new vessel? Conversely, would there be a new form of existential dread, not of annihilation, but of endless repetition, of being trapped in a potentially eternal cycle of learning and suffering? The idea of immortality, often romanticized, comes with its own set of burdens. What if you remember every life, every heartbreak, every mistake? The psychological weight could be immense, leading to a longing for true oblivion rather than perpetual return. Relationships would also be redefined. The depth of human connection is often intensified by the knowledge that our time together is limited. If we knew we could encounter loved ones again, perhaps in different forms, would the urgency of connection diminish? Or would it deepen, creating a profound, multi-lifetime bond that transcends individual identities? The very concept of family could expand beyond lineal descent, encompassing soul groups that reunite across millennia. Societally, the implications are equally vast. Consider population dynamics. If individuals consistently walk back through, returning to new bodies, how would this impact population growth and resource allocation? Would there be an unspoken expectation of a continuous recycling of souls, perhaps leading to new ethical debates around population control or the sanctity of different forms of life? The justice system, as touched upon earlier, would face immense pressure to adapt. If eternal consequences or karmic retribution are believed to be inherent to the cycle, does the state's role in punishment diminish or transform into one focused purely on rehabilitation and societal protection? The concept of legacy, too, would evolve. Our current drive to leave a mark, to create something enduring, often stems from the desire for a form of immortality, a way to persist beyond our physical demise. If we truly return, would the need for a legacy shift from leaving a permanent mark to contributing to the ongoing evolution of consciousness, of the collective journey? Perhaps the focus would move from individual achievement to the betterment of the cyclical whole. Education, for instance, might shift to emphasize not just accumulated knowledge, but also the cultivation of wisdom that transcends individual lives, preparing souls for successive journeys. Ultimately, the idea of death as a door we can walk back through is a profound thought experiment, a lens through which to examine our deepest fears, our most cherished beliefs, and our understanding of existence itself. It challenges us to move beyond simplistic notions of beginning and end, and to contemplate a more fluid, cyclical reality. Whether through reincarnation, resurrection, NDEs, or quantum theory, the underlying thread is the persistence of something beyond the physical form. It suggests that perhaps our universe is far more intricate, far more interconnected, and far more forgiving of finality than we have dared to imagine. It invites us to consider that the journey isn't a straight line, but a spiral, continually returning to familiar themes, always learning, always evolving, always finding new ways to experience the magnificent mystery of being.